I was arriving at my best friend Rose's house to drop off market bags when I peeked through the side window and saw her sitting naked on my husband Alex's lap. The two of them talking about the most indecent things while he squeezed her waist with an intensity he hadn't shown me in months. And I felt my legs weaken so suddenly that I fell to the ground, the bags hitting hard, making noise. And they must have heard because a commotion started inside, both coming out getting dressed in a hurry with the most fake expressions when they saw me lying there, and that's when it happened. That's when my water broke 8 months pregnant, and I realized with horror that I would have to give birth right there in Rose's bed, the same bed where my husband had just been delighting with my best friend. The woman who'd consoled me weeks earlier when I told her I suspected Alex with my 14-year-old sister Lucy, the woman who said he was no good and I deserved better while she was sleeping with him behind my back. If you want to know how a 17-year-old girl who married the cemetery caretaker's mysterious grandson in 1964, the boy with those hypnotizing blue eyes who everyone said was the legendary stranger from the town fair who seduced young women then disappeared, gave birth to her second son in her best friend's betrayal bed while that woman pretended to help. Then 3 weeks later, her father caught Alex naked in her parents' bed with her 14-year-old sister Lucy and beat him so badly his own grandfather had to carry him home bloody. And how 15 years after Alex fled to New York City and then Italy, her son Samuel searched for him and discovered 4 half-siblings from 3 different women, including a brother born to Rose and another to Lucy. Hit that subscribe button right now because this is about learning that the most dangerous men are the ones with beautiful eyes and practiced lies, that temporary house moves near cemeteries bring curses grandmother warned about, and that sometimes the cruelest betrayal isn't your husband with one woman, but discovering he seduced your best friend, your teenage sister, and left a trail of blue-eyed children across 3 states while you sewed burial shrouds by candlelight to feed the sons he abandoned. I'm 79 years old now, and this is my story from Portland, Oregon. Where are you watching from? My name is Hope. I'm 79 years old now, sitting in my small house in Queens, New York, watching my great-grandchildren play in the yard. But this story begins in 1963, when I was barely 17 years old, living in a house behind the cemetery in a small town upstate. We'd moved there when I was 9, my parents Jack and Catherine, my grandmother Dorothy, my brother Michael, and my baby sister Lucy. The house was cheap because no one wanted to live so close to the dead. My father said it was an opportunity. The rent was cheaper. We could save to buy our own place someday. But grandmother Dorothy made the sign of the cross when she found out. Jack, this isn't going to be right, she grumbled while helping load our belongings onto the cart. Place of the dead is with the dead. Place of the living is with the living. The house was simple, darkened wood, 2 small bedrooms, a living room that served for everything, a kitchen with a wood stove. At the back of the yard began the cemetery wall. Tall, painted white, always with damp spots at the bottom. That first night I stood at the window looking at that wall illuminated by moonlight. Were those whispers I heard coming from the other side, or just whined through the trees? This house isn't going to bring anything good, grandmother Dorothy whispered that night, setting up her hammock. There's something wrong with this place. I feel it in my blood. Within a week, our lives had changed. The cemetery caretaker, David Foster, appeared at our door. A tall, thin man with very white skin, gray hair, and eyes so light blue they seemed almost transparent. "Good evening," he said in that deep voice. "I'm David Foster's cemetery caretaker. I came to welcome the new neighbors." When he looked at me, I felt a chill run down my spine. "That wall needs repair," he said before leaving. "If you want, I can help you on Sunday," grandmother Dorothy grumbled after he left. "I don't like people who deal with the dead all day. They stay with the smell of death impregnated." But worse than David's appearance was what came next. He offered my mother work sewing burial shrouds for people who died without family or resources. "Sometimes I need burial shrouds," he explained, placing a package of white fabric on our table. "The lady who did this work moved away. If you accept, I can bring the fabrics and pay you for the work." Grandmother Dorothy approached, drying her hands on her apron. "Sewing for the dead isn't good, daughter." "It brings bad luck," David laughed, but it wasn't a cheerful laugh. "Nonsense, Mrs. Dorothy. The dead don't harm anyone. It's the living you have to fear." My mother accepted. She needed the money. That same afternoon, she started working on her Singer sewing machine, transforming white fabric into long tunics with wide sleeves. "Do you want to learn, Hope?" she asked. I sat on her lap, fascinated and frightened, learning to operate the machine that would sew clothes for corpses. David's orders came frequently: burial shrouds for adults, for the elderly, for children and babies. I helped my mother with almost all of them, holding fabric, learning to cut, sometimes making stitches when the work was simple. 2 years passed like this. Then everything changed when my father lost his job. The factory in New York City suddenly closed. That same night, David appeared at our door with a bottle of whiskey and that yellowish smile. "I heard the news, Mr. Jack," he said, entering without being invited. "Maybe it's fate. I need an assistant at the cemetery. The work isn't difficult and the town hall pays reasonably well." My father swallowed hard. He'd always been cheerful, talkative. Cemetery work didn't suit him at all, but we needed money. Within 2 weeks, Jack, who had been a traveling salesman with dreams and ambitions, became the cemetery caretaker's assistant. He returned home quiet, with dirt under his nails and a strange smell on his clothes. It wasn't just the smell. It was as if a shadow had attached to him. "David is sucking the strength out of him," grandmother would tell my mother. "That's how those with a pack do it. They feed on the energy of others like ticks on cattle." The years passed. Michael grew from a thin, asthmatic boy into a quiet young man. Lucy no longer clung to mother's skirts. She helped with all the chores, and I, without realizing it, turned 15. 15 years old, said grandmother Dorothy, looking at me with those eyes that seemed to see beyond. Dangerous age for a girl, age to start perceiving the world and being perceived by it. It was at St. Mary's Church fair that everything began. After much insistence, I'd convinced mother to let me go to the fair with Ellen, daughter of Rose, our neighbor. Grandmother had sewn me a floral chintz dress with a red ribbon at the waist. I felt pretty that night. The church square was decorated with colorful flags, a large bonfire in the center, food stands everywhere. I was standing near the booth, watching couples dance when I felt something strange. The air became heavier, colder. All sounds diminished, as if someone had turned down the volume of the world. That's when I saw him. On the other side of the square, a tall boy with very white skin, almost as if he glowed under the moonlight, wearing dark clothes different from those worn by the town boys. But what caught my attention most were his eyes. Even at a distance, I could see they were of such a light blue, so intense that they seemed almost transparent, and they were fixed on me, as if in the midst of that crowd I was the only person visible to him. I stood paralyzed, unable to look away. He began to walk in my direction, crossing the square. People seemed to step aside, making way for him without even realizing they were doing it. "Hope," he said when he approached. His voice was soft with an accent I didn't recognize. "I finally found you." I didn't ask how he knew my name, although I should have been surprised. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice coming out almost in a whisper. "Someone who has been watching you for a long time," he replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Someone who came from far away because of you. Do you want to dance?" he asked, extending his hand. I didn't even think before accepting. His touch sent a hot chill down my spine. The music changed when we started to dance. The accordion player now played something slow, almost sad. "You're not from here," I said. "No," he admitted. "I come from far away, but I'll stay for you. You don't even know me." "I know you more than you imagine," he said, making me spin in the dance. "I know about your fears, your dreams. I know that you feel trapped in that house, that you fear that white wall, that at night you stay awake listening to the whispers that come from the other side." How could he know? I had never told anyone about the whispers I heard at night. "Who are you?" I asked again, this time with more urgency. "Someone who can take you from here," he replied. "Someone who can show you a world beyond that wall, beyond this little town." The music suddenly stopped. He took my hands and came closer. "I have to go now," he said, "but I'll be back soon, and when that happens, you will have to choose." "Choose what?" I asked, confused. "Whether you stay or come with me." He released my hands and walked away into the darkness. 3 days later, David, the cemetery caretaker, came to our house accompanied by a young man. My heart almost stopped when I recognized the same boy from the fair. "Mrs. Catherine," said David, "I came to introduce you to my grandson Alex. He arrived from New York City to live with me." "Nice to meet you," replied Mother without much conviction. "The pleasure is mine, ma'am," said Alex with that voice I already knew. David smiled. "At the church fair on Sunday, I told him about your family, but you didn't see each other there, right?" I was frozen. What did he mean we hadn't seen each other? We had danced together. "No," replied Alex, looking me directly in the eyes with a slight smile. "I didn't have the pleasure. There were many people at the fair. Why was he pretending not to know me?" While Mother and David went to the sewing room, Alex approached me, pretending to look at the flowers in the yard. "Do you know why I did that?" he whispered so low only I could hear. "Did what?" I replied, also whispering. "Pretend we didn't meet at the fair." "Why?" I asked, my heart beating rapidly. "Because what happened between us wasn't for others to see or understand, it was just ours," he smiled slightly. "And because I wanted to see if you would also pretend, if you would keep our secret." Grandmother Dorothy observed the boy with sharp eyes, like those of an eagle, as if seeing things we didn't see. Before leaving, he took my hand discreetly. "We'll see each other more often now," he said, "and you'll have to make your decision as I promised you." That night I couldn't sleep. The next morning, Grandmother Dorothy was already awake, sitting on the bench in the yard, peeling potatoes. Grandma, you didn't like Mr. David's grandson, did you? I asked, sitting next to her. She stopped peeling, looked at me with those deep eyes that seemed to see beyond the flesh, all the way to people's souls. I know that type of man, Hope, she said. Too handsome, too polite, always with an answer for everything. In those eyes, she shuddered, making the sign of the cross. Eyes like that I only saw once in my life when I was a child. What mark, Grandma? The mark of the other side, people who aren't really people. People who have a pact. A pact with whom? I asked, though I already knew the answer. With the one who should not be named, she whispered. The father of lies. I didn't believe grandmother was right. I thought she was exaggerating with her old superstitions. But I quickly discovered Alex had something strange. Not anything from another world, just bad blood, as grandmother said. He was clever. He only needed to look at a person to know if they were sad, if they kept secrets. How do you know so much about people? I asked him one day. It's easy, he replied. People want to tell their secrets. They just need someone who seems really interested in listening. We began to see each other in secret. At first, we only talked on the paths between the house and town center. Then the walks became longer, behind the cemetery tombs. In the grove near the river, even in the old church that no one went to anymore, and how we kissed, we embraced like two desperate people. He always wanted more, and I waged the war between desire and fear. Only after marriage, I always told him when his hand went up a little more on my leg. Mother immediately realized my interest in the cemetery caretaker's grandson and didn't like it at all. I don't want you hanging around that boy, she warned me. He has the same blood as David. But who at 15 years old listens to warnings about boys? The prohibition only increased my desire to see Alex again. When I turned 17, everything changed. It was spring. Alex appeared one Sunday afternoon, all dressed up with a starched white shirt and a package in hand. He greeted everyone politely and asked to speak with my father alone. It was my official marriage proposal. It was a scandal at home after he left. Mother cried, saying I was too young, that I didn't know life. Grandmother Dorothy said I was throwing my life away. That boy has the devil in his body, Hope, she said, making the sign of the cross, but I was determined. We got married in May 1964, a simple ceremony at St. Mary's Church with few guests. Mother and I sewed my dress, simple white with some embroidery Grandmother Dorothy did. Alex rented a dark suit. After the wedding, we moved to a small house near the center that Alex had managed to rent. It was small with only 2 rooms, but to me it seemed like a palace. Alex got a job at Paul's fabric store. He didn't earn much, but it was enough to live on. I continued helping Mother with the sewing during the day and returned at the end of the afternoon to our little house. Life was simple. We didn't have much money, but we had love, and how much we had. Alex taught me things I never imagined about the love between a man and a woman. The first time was difficult. It hurt, as Grandmother Dorothy had warned. But afterwards, I discovered that what Grandma described as if it were a sacrifice was in reality one of the best things in life. When we were together like this, I forgot everything, the worries about money, Grandmother's warnings. Around that time, I started feeling nausea in the mornings. My breasts were sensitive. My belly seemed different. When I told Alex, he hugged me and spun me around the living room, happier than I had ever seen him. We're going to have a child, Hope, a child. The delivery was difficult. It started on a night of heavy rain. Alex ran out to look for the midwife, Mary, who'd brought almost all the children in town into the world. When she arrived, I was already losing strength from so much pain. This child is coming sideways, she said. It's going to be difficult, but God helps. It was almost 20 hours of pain. When Matthew finally was born, I was exhausted, sweaty, with pain all over my body. Mary wrapped him in a cloth Grandma had embroidered and put him in my arms. He's a strong boy, said the midwife. But you, girl, are going to need care. For 3 days, I was between life and death with high fever and terrible pains in my belly. Alex sold the watch he'd inherited from his father to pay for transportation to the doctor in New York City. Dr. Roberts gave me a penicillin injection. Many women die like this after childbirth, he explained. She was lucky. Lucky was that Matthew was all right, a chubby baby with his father's blue eyes. The problem was that my milk wouldn't come in. After a week of trying, Mother said, "You have to give him a bottle. If not, he won't recover." Mother taught me to boil cow's milk, dilute it with boiled water, and give it to him in the glass bottle with a rubber nipple. As I was still weak, Mother began to come to our house every day. She brought Lucy with her, who at 12 years old was already becoming a pretty girl. She adored her nephew, spent hours cradling him, singing songs. Little by little, I got better, but I was never the same again. I always felt pains in my belly when the weather changed. The doctor said I might not be able to have more children. Alex didn't complain. He said Matthew was already enough of a blessing. Even with all the difficulties, we were happy. Our simple little house, our son, our love that remained strong. Alex sometimes arrived with small surprises, a sweet from the store, a hair ribbon, a flower from the path. "You're the woman of my life," he would whisper in my ear. "You and our son are everything to me." And I believed him with all the strength of my heart. Matthew grew strong. Soon he was crawling all over the house, pulling tablecloths from the table. 2 years passed, and I became pregnant again. The news made everyone happy, but also worried them. The doctor had warned it would be risky. The family was always at home. Michael, now 15 and working at the market, came on weekends. Only father didn't come much. He continued working at the cemetery with David, increasingly withdrawn, more distant. Lucy, my sister, now 14 years old, was very pretty, with hair down to her waist, a slender figure. She was always animated, smiling, different from everyone at home. Lucy joked with my husband. At first, I thought Alex's interest in my sister was nice. He always asked how she was doing in school, brought her books to read, told her stories about New York City. It's good for her to have an example, I thought innocently. When I became pregnant with my second child, I didn't have the same energy to realize what was happening right in front of my nose. I had a lot of nausea, was always tired, fell asleep early. Alex came home later and later, always with excuses about extra work at Paul's store. One day, I was so tired that I decided to take an afternoon nap. I lay down beside Matthew and fell asleep instantly. I woke up to a strange noise in the living room. I got up slowly and went to see what it was. What I found scared me. Lucy was lifting her dress on one leg, showing those pretty thighs with her hands. And I saw my husband with that predator's face towards her, looking her up and down. He was looking at her. He wasn't so close, but it wasn't necessary. I knew that look well. It was the same one he had directed at me so many times when we were alone. That was enough for me to go crazy. I slapped him without thinking. Lucy started crying. Alex got up quickly, trying to explain himself. "Calm down, Hope. It's not what you think." Lucy had hurt her leg. She was showing me the scratch. "It's true, Hope," sobbed my sister. "I scratched myself on the wire fence in the yard, but I wasn't stupid." There was no scratch on that leg, and that look of Alex's wasn't of concern, it was of desire. "Get out of my house," I shouted at him. "Get out and never come back." That night, we had the worst fight since we got married. "How could you?" I asked. "My own sister, a child." "Are you crazy?" he replied. "You're seeing things where they don't exist. You're making up stories because you're pregnant, full of foolish jealousy." For a moment, I almost believed him. But then I remembered that look, those hands of my sister on her own thigh, the way he looked at her. No, I hadn't imagined anything. From that day on, everything changed between us. It was as if a wall had fallen in the middle of our bed. Alex slept facing the wall and I facing the door. We hardly talked beyond what was necessary. Despite everything, I kept that secret to myself. I was ashamed to tell grandmother or mother. What would they think? It was then that I decided to tell Ellen, my childhood friend, the only person I could trust. "Ellen, I need to tell you something, but it has to stay between us." I told her everything I had seen, how I felt, how things had changed at home. Ellen was shocked, her hand over her mouth. "My God, Hope, look, with these men you never know, but you have to think about your children now, about Matthew and the one who's coming. You can't upset yourself like this." She was right. Lucy didn't return to our house after that day. I would see her sometimes on the street or when I visited mother. She would lower her head, not look me in the eyes. I tried to move forward for my children, for Matthew, and for that baby in my belly, who was now 6 months old and kicking harder and harder. One day I went to Mother's house and found Grandmother Dorothy. When she saw me, she stopped praying. Her eyes opened in a way I had never seen before, fear, surprise, and pity all at the same time. "What's wrong, Grandma?" I asked, frightened. She shook her head, going back to passing the beads of the rosary. "Nothing, my child, I was just distracted," but I knew it wasn't that. Grandma always had that gift of seeing things before others. Mother entered the living room, hugged me, asked if I wanted coffee. All normal, but I also noticed something strange about her, a way of not looking me in the eyes. Everyone in that house was hiding something from me. One day, now almost 7 months pregnant, I put Matthew in the stroller and we went to visit Mother again. It was a Saturday afternoon. Alex said he would stay doing extra hours at the store as always. When I approached the cemetery on the way to my parents' house, I saw Lucy come out of there. She didn't see me. She left quickly, almost running. I found it very strange. My sister never went to the cemetery. She always complained about the place, said it scared her. What would she be doing there on a Saturday afternoon? Something inside me froze, a bad feeling. Instead of going directly to my parents' house, I decided to enter the cemetery. I told myself I wanted to talk to Father, but deep down I knew I was looking for something else. I pushed Matthew's stroller along the stone path between the tombs. The cemetery was empty at that hour. I headed to David's house, which was at the entrance. Father should be there working as David's assistant. When I approached, I saw the door open. I quickly hid behind a tomb with Matthew's stroller. and it was then that I saw my husband leave David's house. Alex was tucking his shirt into his pants, running his hand through his hair to fix it. I knew those gestures well. It was at that moment that I understood everything. It was there that he met with Lucy in the old cemetery caretaker's house, who probably knew everything and covered for them. I was paralyzed, unable to move. Alex passed a few meters from me, but he didn't see us. He was whistling under his breath, satisfied. When I could move again, my legs were shaking so much that I had to sit on the ground. Matthew started crying, perhaps feeling my anguish. I took him in my arms, pressed him against my chest. Tears ran down my face without me being able to control them. Everything was starting to make sense. David, that man who had changed my father, who had brought Alex into our lives, who knew all our secrets, seemed to be pulling the strings behind every misfortune in my family. I didn't go to Mother's house that day. I returned home, put Matthew to bed, and sat in the living room in the darkness, waiting. When Alex arrived late at night, I was still sitting there in the dark. "Hope, why don't you turn on the light?" he asked. I looked at him, at that face I had loved so much, at those blue eyes that once seemed so sincere to me. Now I only saw lies in them. "I know everything, Alex," I said, my voice calmer than I imagined it would be. "I know that you and Lucy see each other at Mr. David's house, and before you come to me with lies, it wasn't anyone who told me." I saw it myself. He turned as white as wax. "What are you talking about? Are you crazy? I saw you leave there today, and I saw Lucy leave before from the cemetery, a place she always said she hated." Alex ran his hand over his face, thinking quickly. "I just went to talk to my grandfather, and your sister must have gone to see your father. You're imagining things, Hope. It's the pregnancy that's affecting your head." I had heard that before. It was always the same excuse. "Don't lie to me anymore," I said. "I can't stand any more lies." After that night, I thought I had been foolish to reveal what I had seen. Now surely he would warn Lucy and they would just find another place, be more careful. I felt helpless, without ground. Alex continued living in our house, sleeping in our bed, though he no longer touched me, but I needed to vent to someone before I exploded. I decided to seek out Rose, my neighbor Ellen's mother. The only person I trusted besides Ellen herself. A few days later, Grandmother Dorothy came to my house to prepare a special porridge. "Grandma, can you look after Matthew for me while I go to the market?" I asked her. "Of course, my child," she replied, "but don't take too long and don't carry weight." I left relieved to have some time alone. I wanted to go to the market first, and on the way back stopped by Rose's house. I bought only the essentials, a few bags that I could carry without much weight. When I arrived at Rose's house, I entered directly as I always did. We had that custom in those days, especially among close friends. As soon as I entered the yard, I heard voices and realized Rose was not alone. I found it strange. It was a weekday. Surely her husband Paul was at work, but then I recognized the voice. It was my husband's. My heart pounded hard in my chest. What would Alex be doing there at that hour? He should be in the store working. I went to the house door and tried to open it, but it was locked from the inside. It was then that I peeked through the side window, made of wood with some loose boards where I could spy, and there I saw the most terrifying scene of my life, something that changed my existence forever. Rose was sitting naked on Alex's lap like a mad woman. The two of them were talking about the most indecent things. Alex was squeezing her waist with an intensity and desire he hadn't shown me in a long time. I felt as if my legs had been amputated because they weakened so suddenly that I ended up falling to the ground. The bags I was carrying hit the floor hard, making noise. They must have heard because a commotion started inside the house. Soon they both came out, getting dressed in a hurry with the most fake expressions when they saw me lying there by the window. When Alex saw me on the ground, he came to help me up. I was about to faint. My voice wouldn't come out. My hands were shaking so much I couldn't even push him away. My belly felt like it was going to explode from how hard it had become at that moment. "Hope, for God's sake," he said, lifting me up. "It's not what you think." I looked at Rose, whom I had considered my best friend for so many years. She couldn't even look me in the eyes. She was adjusting her dress, her face and hair drenched in sweat as she stammered. "I can explain, Hope. Just, they took me inside, sat me on a sofa. They both started talking at the same time, making up excuses. It had been the first time, it had been a mistake, they were sorry. But I didn't hear anything. I only remember Rose begging me not to tell her husband. The truth is, I was so shocked that I seemed to have entered a world of silence where only that horrible image kept repeating in my head. My best friend, who had consoled me when I told her about Lucy, who said Alex was no good and I deserved better, was now in bed with him. All those years of friendship, shared secrets, tears, and laughter, it had all been a lie. Had she been with him for a long time? Were they laughing at me behind my back? "I'm going to get a glass of water for her," I heard Alex say. Rose sat next to me, tried to take my hand, but I pulled it away forcefully. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't want to hurt you, it was stronger than me. Alex returned with a glass of water, tried to make me drink. I pushed his hand away with a slap, spilling water over both of them. Don't touch me, I finally managed to say. Never touch me again. Hope, think about the baby, he said as if suddenly he cared. You need to calm down. Don't talk about my child, I replied, anger finally overcoming the shock. You don't have that right. I stood up with difficulty, feeling a sharp pain in my back. I needed to get out of there, go home, pick up Matthew, think about what to do. But where would I go? How would I support two children alone? I'll take you home, Alex said, grabbing my arm. Let go of me. I don't want anything from you. Don't be silly, Hope, he insisted, gripping my arm tighter. Look at your condition. You can't go out alone like this. I looked at Rose, who seemed to have shrunk in her chair. This is what happens when you trust someone, I said, tears now flowing freely down my face. This is what I get for believing in you. I am your friend, she whimpered without convincing even herself. Friend, I said. A friend doesn't sleep with her friend's husband. A friend doesn't betray like that. But something that shouldn't have happened. My water broke. At that very moment, my legs got completely wet. I had to stay right there. It was madness. The scoundrel ran out to look for the midwife, while I was forced to stay there in the bed, where my husband had recently been delighting with that whore. Rose turned white as paper when she saw the water running down my legs. She removed the dirty sheets from her bed, the same ones she and Alex had used, and put clean ones. She helped me lie down now without looking me in the eyes. Go call Mary, she told Alex. Run. This baby is coming now. The pain started to get stronger, more frequent. It felt like something was tearing my body from the inside out. I bit my lip to keep from screaming. I didn't want to give her that satisfaction. Breathe deeply, Hope, Rose guided me. Remember how it was with Matthew? I didn't even respond. I just turned my face to the other side. I didn't want to see that fake face. I didn't want her help, but what choice did I have? Alex came running back with Mary, the midwife. Let's get to it then, Mary said, rolling up her sleeves. This little one is in a hurry. The pains were getting stronger, more frequent. Mary looked between my legs and nodded. She's dilating quickly. I think this one will be born easier than the first. Alex stayed in the living room as was customary. Men didn't attend births in those days. Rose tried to help, taking my hand, but I pulled it away forcefully. I don't need you, I said through gritted teeth. You've done enough. Suddenly, we heard loud knocks on the front door. The door opened even before anyone could answer it. It was Grandmother Dorothy. With one hand, she pushed the stroller where Matthew was sitting, playing with his toy car. Hope, I was going crazy with worry, Grandma said, her eyes wide open seeing me in that situation. Grandma entered the room like a hurricane. Her eyes quickly scanned the entire scene, me lying in Rose's bed, sweating with pain from contractions, Rose standing in a corner uncomfortable, and Alex sitting in the living room. The expression on her wrinkled face changed instantly. Her lips tightened into a thin line, and those eyes that had seen almost everything in this life seemed to see beyond appearances, beyond lies. She understood that something was very wrong there without anyone having to explain it to her. I'm going to take care of my granddaughter now, she told Mary with a firmness that left no room for discussion. Then she turned to Alex. Take Matthew to the living room and stay there with him. Alex simply obeyed. Grandma took off the shawl she always wore, rolled up her sleeves, and went straight to the midwife's side. Everything will be all right, my child, she whispered, taking my hand firmly. Grandma is here now. And with her there, despite everything, I ended up forgetting what I had just witnessed and used all my energy to bring my little one into the world. The labor was faster than with Matthew, but no less painful. After about 3 hours of pushing, I finally heard the crying. It's a boy, announced Mary, lifting a red, wrinkled baby who was crying with all his might. Grandma Dorothy cried when she saw her great-grandson. They cut the umbilical cord, cleaned the little one, and put him on my chest. Rose approached, smiling at the baby, and I, although exhausted, managed to shout, "Get away from him." She went away, all ashamed. Even with my heart broken by everything I had discovered in the last few hours, I felt an immense love for that little creature. His name will be Samuel, I said, touching his little head. Alex entered the room with eyes wide open at seeing his son. He wanted to hold him, but Grandma Dorothy stood between us. Let the mother and child rest a bit, she said firmly. You'll have time later. By then, Rose's husband Paul had arrived. He entered the house with a face tired from work, with no idea of the drama that was happening there. With the greatest pretense, everyone greeted each other as if nothing had happened. Paul shook Alex's hand, congratulating him on the birth of the baby. Rose gave her husband a kiss, and I remained silent in bed, observing it all with a lump in my throat. I felt very sorry for Paul. He loved that woman. He worked hard, saving every penny to give her a better life. It was Grandmother Dorothy who perceived my discomfort. Come on, Hope. It's time to take you and the child home, she said firmly. I asked Grandma to help me get up. My legs were still shaking. Alex went along, helping to carry Matthew's stroller and the shopping bags. When we were finally leaving, I felt a twinge of satisfaction I'll never forget. Rose's bed had been left all stained with blood, water, and everything else my labor had caused. The white sheets she was so proud of were now unusable. Let her figure out how to wash all that or throw them away or burn them. I didn't care. It was the least she could do after what she had done to me. Grandma Dorothy decided to stay with me that night. Alex, as soon as we got home, went straight to take a bath, avoiding looking me in the eyes. It wasn't long before everyone arrived home, Mother, Michael, and Father. Only Lucy didn't come, and I knew well why. When they saw Samuel, it was a celebration. Father, after seeing his grandson, stayed quiet in a corner as always, but I noticed he was looking around, searching for Alex. Grandma Dorothy noticed it too, and exchanged a meaningful look with him that I didn't understand at that moment. When everyone was leaving late at night, I realized Alex wasn't home. He had left without notice, without saying where he was going. I finally fell asleep, too exhausted to worry about his whereabouts. I don't know how much time passed, maybe an hour after the family left. I woke up frightened by the sound of the door opening forcefully. It was Alex, all bloody, being carried by Grandpa David. My God, what happened? I screamed, approaching slowly. Alex had a swollen face, a cut on his eyebrow that was bleeding a lot, his shirt torn and stained red. His grandfather David helped him sit in a chair. Calm down, woman, don't wake up the children, the old gravedigger spoke. Grandma Dorothy jumped up, startled, and began to examine Alex's wounds. What happened to him? I insisted. His grandfather David didn't want to tell me the reason until he finally let it out. It was your father who did this to him. I understood everything instantly. It was because of Lucy, wasn't it? His grandfather David remained silent, confirming what I already knew. Alex, moaning in pain while Grandma cleaned the cut on his eyebrow, began to ask me for forgiveness. Forgive me, Hope. I didn't mean to, but now it's over. I swear, your father almost killed me. He said if he sees me near your sister again, he'll finish the job. Then he said something that froze my blood. I'll have to leave, Hope. I can't stay here. I'll go to New York City, back to my parents' house. When things calm down, I'll send for you and the children. Grandma, who had been quiet until then, cut into the conversation. What are you doing with your life, boy? All this for what? To now run away like a coward. I told you, Hope, that this boy carried the devil's shadow. The moment Grandma said that, the lights in the living room flickered. It wasn't my imagination. Everyone saw it. My skin broke out in goosebumps. Grandma Dorothy made the sign of the cross on her chest. Alex seemed to shrink in the chair where he was sitting. You're right, he told Grandma. I've done everything wrong, but now it's too late. He got up with effort, went to the closet, and began to collect his things. He wrapped it all in a bag and turned to me. I'm sorry, Hope, for everything. You deserved better. Whatever you hear about me, believe me, I've always loved you and I'll always love you. You're the only woman I love. He went to the crib, looked at Samuel, who was sleeping peacefully, then at Matthew in the bed, his eyes filled with tears. I'll send you news and money when I can. I couldn't say anything. Part of me wanted to scream, to hit him, to throw him out of there. Another part, that foolish part that still loved the man I had known for years, wanted to ask him to stay, to try again. But I remained silent. After he left with his grandfather, disappearing into the darkness of the night, I was so sad, so devastated. I had never felt so much pain in my life. If you could see my heart at that moment, it would surely be dust, all shattered. The next day, my brother Michael appeared to bring Grandma's things. I was lying in the bedroom nursing Samuel. I heard voices in the living room, Michael and Grandma Dorothy speaking in low voices. By the tone, I realized it was something serious. I've never seen Dad like that, Michael was saying. It seemed like he had turned into a beast. And Lucy, asked Grandma, how is she all beaten up? Dad had no mercy. He gave her a beating. He said he was going to teach her to respect her own family. I couldn't bear to just listen. I opened the door suddenly and they both got scared. What happened to Lucy? What did Dad do? I asked with my heart beating hard. Tell me everything, Michael, I insisted, gripping his arm tightly. Everything. My brother looked at Grandma as if asking for permission. She sighed deeply. Tell her. Just say what you saw with your own eyes. Michael led me to the kitchen table, made me sit down. He began to speak with great difficulty. It was last night after we left here. When we got home, suddenly we heard strange noises coming from Dad and Mom's bedroom. Moans, muffled laughter. My heart was in my mouth. I already imagined what was coming. Dad went right away and flung the door open, and there they were. He paused, took a sip of my water. The two of them they were in Dad and Mom's bed, Lucy and Alex. The two of them naked, doing that. I almost fainted right there. Grandma Dorothy held me by the shoulders strongly, keeping me seated. Dad went crazy, Michael continued. He grabbed Alex by the hair, threw him to the floor, started hitting him, kicking him. Lucy was screaming, tried to pull Dad away, but he gave her a slap that sent her flying. The neighbors heard the screams, came to see what was happening. Mom was trying to separate them, but Dad was beside himself. Lucy received many blows. Alex tried to react, but Dad is strong. I almost fell off the chair. And Lucy? I asked after a while. She's in bed at home, all beaten up. Mom is taking care of her, but hardly speaks to her. She's ashamed. Everyone in the neighborhood found out. The worst of all was imagining that scene in our parents' bed. Alex, my husband, with Lucy, my little sister, whom I myself had helped raise. That was too much for me. At that moment, I understood why Alex had decided to leave. It wasn't just because of my father, who could really fulfill his threat to kill him. It was because now the whole town knew. The scandal had formed. Gossip must already be running through the streets. That's why he had to flee, I murmured. It's better this way, said Grandma Dorothy firmly. A man who doesn't respect his own family doesn't deserve to have a family. Several days later, Grandma Dorothy said I should register my son. You can't leave the child without documents, Hope. I knew she was right. I had to gather my courage and go to the city registry office. When I got there, Mr. Anthony, the secretary, looked at me with that face of someone who already knew everything. Mrs. Hope, you've come to register the child. Yes, I replied. And the father? He asked, knowing full well the answer. He's gone. Mr. Anthony cleared his throat. You know that by law, if you're legally married, even if the husband isn't present, the child is automatically considered his, right? That's how it was. If the woman was married, the child she had was presumed to be her husband's. I'll need the marriage certificate, said the secretary. I handed him the paper. Mr. Anthony filled out the registry book, asked me to sign, stamped it, and gave me Samuel's birth certificate. Samuel Foster, son of Hope Rivers Foster and Alex Foster, born on the 15th of September, 1968. When I left the registry office, I felt so much sadness. A few days later, Mom came to visit us. She was dejected, thinner, with deep circles under her eyes. Your father never went back to work at the cemetery after what happened, she said in a low voice. David doesn't even want to see him around there, she continued. He spends the entire day sleeping and all night at Louis Bar. He comes home at dawn drunk. All the money that's left he spends on whiskey. Grandma Dorothy shook her head. I warned you, Catherine. The place of the living is not near a cemetery. That house has always had a shadow. Mom nodded. You were right, Mom. We shouldn't have moved to that house behind the cemetery. The situation was becoming unsustainable. Not only did I have to deal with my broken heart, but also with the responsibility of raising two children alone in an environment where everyone knew our disgrace. Every time I went out on the street, I felt the looks and whispers behind my back. It was then that Mom and Grandma made a decision that would change our lives forever, to leave town. There's nothing for us here anymore, daughter, said Mom. The gossip will never end. Your father won't find work. You won't be able to raise your children with everyone pointing at them. But where will we go? I asked, frightened. Grandma Dorothy raised those eyes that always seemed to see beyond. I have a cousin in New York City, Helena. It's a big city there. Nobody knows anybody. We can start over with a clean name. Your mother knows how to sew well. You too, in the capital, there's always work for a good seamstress. And the children? I asked. New York City has more opportunities for them, Mom replied. More school, more future. Away from all this history. We'll all go, Grandma replied with determination. Your father will go, even if I have to take him tied up. Michael is already old enough to work. And Lucy, she needs a firm hand. That night, I lay looking at the cracked ceiling of the house, thinking about everything. But when I turned to the side and saw Matthew sleeping next to Samuel's crib, both so innocent, I knew that Grandma and Mom were right. There was nothing left for us in that town. The house near the cemetery had brought the bad luck that Grandma Dorothy always predicted. It was time to turn the page and start anew, away from that white wall, away from the burial shrouds, away from the blue eyes that once bewitched me. This is where part 1 ends, my children. If you want to know what happened next, how we survived in New York City, how Samuel searched for his father 15 years later and discovered brothers he never knew existed, how Alex created a trail of blue-eyed children across 3 states and 2 countries, you must watch part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the continuation of my story, because what came next was even more unbelievable than what you've heard so far.